Hi, this is Abraham Laboriel, and I would like to take the time to share with you some ideas about beginning funk bass. The first thing has to do with just knowing how to tune your instrument. On the 4th-string bass, let's begin with the 1st string, which is the highest string pitch-wise, and that's G, and it's also the 1st string. Then we have D, which is the 2nd string. Then we have A, which is the 3rd string. And finally we have E, which is the 4th string. The simplest way to think about funk is that most of the time funk is in 4/4 or 2/4, but very rarely people do funk in 3 or 5 or 7. That's for more advanced concepts. So let's begin with just playing with the right hand, and I would like to use 3 fingers: the thumb, the index finger, and the middle finger. And which is almost like the bonanza feeling. So if we are using strictly the right hand, try to practice that on all the strings with a feeling. Try to feel something musical in your heart or in your mind. Just the right hand by itself. Going back and forth between all the strings so that you get used to playing your whole instrument with that one hand. If the 3 fingers is too complicated and too soon, start with just one. Some people like to play with the thumb a lot, so if you anchor your fingers against the pickups, which later we will explain to you each part of the bass, that's just one finger technique. And always try to feel something so that it's not just boring practicing, you know. The 1st string, G, 2nd string, D, 3rd string, A, and 4th string, E. Now, for those of you that are more advanced, you might have noticed that as I was changing strings, I would stop or dampen each string so that it would not keep ringing. But don't worry if you cannot do that. If all the strings are ringing at the same time, don't worry. Just try to feel something and get going with the rhythm. And that's the beginning of the right hand. That's the 3-finger technique. If you do only 1-finger technique, just try to feel something, you know. So that's just right hand by itself. Then if you want to bring the left hand, So, like if you want to do it with only one finger, you can. Whatever you need to do, but try to feel the music. So that's the basics. Now, if you have a drum pattern, you can hear the bass drum, boom, 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 boom. The snare goes on 2 and 4. 1, 3, 1, 3. So. So that's like the most basic, just the same note over and over and imitating the drummer perfectly. That would be always a safe way to play funk if you have a drummer that you want to imitate. And then you can go from there and start getting a little freer from the drummer or freer as a bass player. And for those of you who know me, please don't get tired of hearing me saying this. Always ask the people that you're making music with if they are comfortable with your ideas. Because the whole point of making music is to communicate and to create a good feeling together. So now I'm playing with the thumb most of the time and hitting the string against the fingerboard. One of the most used techniques for funk bass has to do with playing with the thumb, striking the strings against the fingerboard, which creates a very, very percussive sound. And then pulling with the middle finger, and in the process of pulling, it creates which I call a snap. So a lot of bass players, with me as an exception, use that technique of striking with the thumb and snapping. But what I do is I snap both of them. I snap with my thumb, and then I snap with my finger. The majority of the people strike with their thumb and snap. But I have not favored that technique for myself. And this is, even though you are beginners, is a word of encouragement that you don't have to do it my way. You can discover your own way. Thank God people have accepted my way of doing things, and I've had a chance to play with a lot of people. And the same thing will happen to you. Just try to feel something and communicate what you're feeling. And then as you listen to the feedback of other friends and other musicians, you'll know which things to keep and which things to discard, and then we all grow that way. So when I play with my thumb only, striking is comfortable for me. But when I play the combination of thumb and pulling, it is not comfortable for me. And maybe if I spend more time practicing, eventually I can get it together. But for myself, snapping both of them is what enabled me to communicate something. So So that's an example of thumb and pulling as far as the right hand technique is concerned. Another technique that we use a lot on playing funk is to strike the strings with a full right hand this way. So that for those of you that are beginners, you aim the palm of your fingers against the string, and little by little you develop a sense of accuracy to know which of the strings is going to sound. Muting the strings with your left hand helps to maximize the accuracy, because since the only string that you want to sound would be the string that you are not muting. So that's another right hand technique that's used for funk. And then if we go back to the bonanza thing, you have the... So in this kind of feeling, so those are some of the three basic techniques that most bass players can use and take advantage of. Now I would like to take the time to tell you a little bit about harmony the theory behind harmony has to do with the fact that harmony is the part of music that deals primarily with chord structures. What creates a chord and the different kinds of chords there exist is what known traditionally as harmony. So the basis of all harmony happens to be the bass note, which means that all the chords are named from the bass. So if you have the first string, which is a G, every time you use that note, it will be some form of G chord. So if you're playing funk in G, if it is a G minor, the word minor means that the third is a minor third. So that's a minor third, and that's a G. And that's a third interval, minor third interval. So those are the two notes that you can use very nice on a G minor funk. So G's and B flats, you know. Then you have the traditional fifth, which is, in that case, would be the D. D, G, B flat. And that would be some form of a G minor. And for that case, then you play G, the low G, higher G, and in some bases that's the highest G. So all the notes that bass players play, as a bass player you need to be aware every time you move how that note is going to affect the music that you're playing. So if it is G minor, you have G, the B flat, which is the minor third, the D, and the G. Now I played a passing note, the C, and the choices for passing notes come from knowing scales. And in the case of a G minor, the scale that you would be using would be a G, then an A, then a B flat, which is the minor third, then the C, then the D, which is the fifth of the chord. Then you have the choice of the E natural, then the F natural, which is the flat 7 of the chord, and then the G. And then you can use all of those for the funk, but that's more advanced funk. And that way you go up and down the scale, you know? But for now, I think it's simpler if we just create a nice feeling with just using the root, which is the G, the minor third, the B flat, and sometimes the fifth, you know. And that way, all the time, people will know that the tonality or the sound of the harmony that you're trying to imply on your bass line will be of a G minor. That's just dealing in minor chords, because a lot of funk music is based on minor chords. If you learn to do that, probably a good 70% of funk songs you'll be able to play. For some reason, we love to play in minor chords. Then the major chords come from changing the minor third into a major third. So once again, if you're in the key of G, the B natural, which is a half step above the B flat, is the major third. The D remains the same. Oh, Jose, can you see? Which is when you take theory, most people that are trying to learn the sound of a major triad, they sing the national anthem, you know. So that gives you your major sound, which in a lot of blues or rock and roll chord progressions, the major triad is used. The word triad is a new word that I'm introducing, which has to do with the three notes, the roots, G, the B natural, the third, and the D. So the combination of those three notes in harmony is a triad. And that's a major triad. So if you use that as a basis for a funk thing, you know. So in that case, I'm using just the roots, the third, the fifth, and the sixth. And what makes it funk is just the feel, you know. So that in that case, you're just playing a G over and over and over, but in your mind, you're hearing the major third, you know, the B natural. So we just talked about major and minor chords. And those are the real foundations, the basic, the most used chords of all. If you stick carefully to listening and knowing when the major third is what needs to be used or the minor third is what needs to be used, then when other harmonies that are more complex, that involve augmented chords, diminished chords, seventh chords, and altered chords with flat 13s and sharp 11s and all that kind, as long as you pay close attention to what kind of a third you are supposed to play, for the most part you'll be able to play the correct bass line without offending the guitarist or the keyboard player or the other musicians that you're playing with. And if you offend them, don't worry, just tell them what note you should play instead of the one that you chose. And that's how all of us learn what to do and what not to do. And then sometimes amazing things happen and people like some mistakes that we play and then says, wow, that's the new bass line, that's the new sound. So just to review quickly, you have the G, then the B flat, that's the minor third, and then the D, which is the fifth, and that would be a minor triad. G, B flat, and D, minor triad. If the third becomes a major third, it would be a B natural. G, B natural, and D, and that's a major triad. Then you have the octave above, which is the G again. And if you lower that by a whole step, you have G, B natural, D, and F natural, and that's a dominant seventh chord. which most blues is based on. Dominant 7 chords are very, very important part of music because about 40% of the music that we all play is blues based, you know. So if you turn that into a funk, so the 7th chords with a major third. Then in a lot of blues lines, the major third can come from the minor third and then you bend it. You know, that's the major third, the minor third. And that way, by combining that kind of a bass line, you know, you have your note choices, which is usually 5 notes. And when you have a lot of 5-note groups, it becomes kind of like the pentagon, you know, it becomes the pentatonic scale. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then back to G. So you have a G, an A, a C, a D, an F natural, and a G. That works very nice with a G minor chord. And you say, well, how come it's minor and there's no B flat? Because the C and the B flat are like a whole step apart, you know. So you have C, B flat, C, B flat, C, B, F natural, G. That's a pentatonic scale that goes very nice with a minor thing. Now, if you want to play a major thing, then you have to avoid the C, and the pentatonic scale that goes with that would be the G, A, then the B natural, D natural, F, you know. You know, some bass lines like so now you see how all of these things connect, and they can become beautiful melodies, you know. So you have your G. If it is major, you do the B natural, the D, the A, and the F, and the G. If it is minor, then take advantage of the C. So you have the G, the A, the C, the D, the F, and the G again. Now, the reason why I'm talking about G a lot is because it's easier to see and to play. As you move up and down the fingerboard, then you have a G sharp up or a G flat below. The G flat has the same name as F sharp and harmonic. Then you have the F, and then you have the open E. so that the same scales and musical ideas that we're talking about, I advise you to try to practice them everywhere in your instrument, so that this can become. But when you practice, try to feel something, because believe me, if it is not music, there's no point in even trying, you know? So you have. So that the whole time that you're playing, you're feeling something. So G sharp, or G flat, you know, whatever it is. So, you see, try to always feel something. Music is about feelings that are being communicated. Sometimes good feelings, sometimes not so good feelings. But communication eventually is a good thing, because through that we all learn how to adjust. And so if you have a B natural, you know, G, B natural, and somebody wants to hear something else, then you adjust. He says, well, I don't like that as well. But then you'll let somebody else bring something to that note that will eventually maybe change your feeling towards, so that you like it as well. And we all grow. Change, you know. That's a change, you know. Another change. All of that is part of the beauty of the reason why we love music so much. I would like to now change bases and share another funk idea for you. You know, depending on how you set up your instrument, you can get a different sound. You know, basses have bridges, pickups, different tone controls, you know, volume. You can add bass and treble, and then you have the nut from which the first sound that you hear on the string begins. This is the equivalent of the first fret, and then on, and you can get higher and lower. Then you have the machinery and the tuning knobs. So when you have bright strings, the bass gets a really bright sound. Round wound strings, then as they get older, they sound mellower, softer. Sometimes by using the flesh part of your finger, you can get a tender sound. And so rather than to change the setup of each bass, I just pick a different bass that is set up differently. And that way I can illustrate to you how a different bass with a different setup can give you a different feeling, you know. Don't get discouraged. Keep trying until you find a setup that you like and a note that you like. But make music, feel something, and share it with everyone.